Welcome back, everyone. We are back again with your favorite weekly live stream. It's your favorite now. It's called Moving from Uncertainty to Certainty with Allison, Emmy, and Sandeep. And speaking of uncertainty, Emmy had a hitch, couldn't make it. So we'll try again with Emmy next week. But for this week, you get Sandeep and myself. Yay! I feel like if we just sit for a second and take a deep breath, that's one of the first steps in moving from uncertainty to certainty. What do you think?
Well, I think you're on the dot. You have hit the nail on the head, right? Because what happens when you take a deep breath, your sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, they align.
Yeah.
So I think that's a brilliant idea. Not one, three deep breaths.
Let's just do it. Ready? I feel better already.
Ready, Ellison? So what do you offer our people today? What is your take, your rules?
Yes. So when I get captured by the uncertainty bug, when it gets me, what I have learned is the most important thing to do is what we just did, is just stop for a second, because the momentum is spinning and it's like this vortex that pulls in all the matching thoughts. I can't, I won't, it'll never, everything's ruined. It just sort of spins them into the vortex. And it feels like, you're in the middle of it and all you see are the ways in which something won't work for you or everything has gone wrong. So I have sort of learned to take a third person perspective on this, like writers take POV, point of view, whether it's third person or like omniscient or, they take a point of view. I sort of release myself from looking at life through this physical perspective. And I say, all right, so if I go to this point of view of all that is, this is one hiccup, one millisecond of time that looks like, because of my emotional hormonal reaction, looks like it's all encompassing, that the walls have fallen in, that I can't move forward. But that's not actually the truth of it. That's just a momentary encapsulating perspective, but it's not the truth. It's not the truth. So I've learned to pull myself out, look at it from this bird's eye perspective, and remind myself that and for a while, what I did is I used to say to myself, there are infinite, incalculable ways to get from where I am to where I want to be. Infinite. So this one way, didn't work out. No big deal. I don't have to remain in this sense of uncertainty and be captured by it and get stuck and feel so immobile,
What you said was absolutely right. There are infinite ways, and one size does not fit all.
Mm-hmm.
So, what might work for you might not work for me, and what might work for me might not work for someone else.
Right.
So, you got to keep trying, but at the same time, you got to be aware that there are certain fundamentals by which we react.
Mm-hmm.
So, those fundamentals cannot be ignored, right? And the first fundamental is that this anxiety or uncertainty, is a complex process. It's a process where your body is involved, your emotions are involved, your mind is involved, your brain is involved, and the external stimuli is involved.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, whatever is not pleasant, whatever doesn't give us any joy or gives us pain, our subconscious is the fastest to absorb it.
Oh, good news.
Yeah, it's the fastest to absorb it. Now, okay, if it's a learned trait of absorbing that thing, so even the reverse might be true. So, very simple trick or a hack or an exercise is when you're feeling uncertain, obviously, intention has to be there,
Mhm.
right? You don't know what to do, you're uncertain, you're restless. Pick up a piece of paper, take a pen, and just let those emotions of uncertainty flow out on the piece of paper. Now, what happens in the process is that what is so deep into your subconsciousness comes to your consciousness, right? And through your hands and the pen gets transferred on the piece of paper. Crumble the piece of paper, burn it, throw it, shred it, whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
And you might have to repeat this thing a number of times depending on the intensity. But yes, it definitely does work. Like people were saying that, okay, how does it work? And this is all bullshit, etc., etc. It's so simple. Uh, the parents, all of us who are parents, if we go through a cupboard, we'll find some birthday card or some New Year card created by our kids when they were 3 years of age or 4 years of
Mhm.
age, right?
Yeah.
If you go
Oh,
to
yeah.
the if you go to the market, you'll never buy that card.
Mhm.
If you try selling it, no one is going to buy it, right? You won't give it a second look. But why are you holding it so close to yourself? The question is why? Because
Mhm.
your child transferred his or her emotions on that piece of paper, and what you are seeing in that card is his or her love for you, emotions for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Writing. Go ahead. Finish.
yeah, so similarly, like your child transferred his or her emotions on that piece of paper,
Mhm.
you are transferring your emotions on that piece of paper. Remember, it's energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. What you have done is you have transferred that energy into ash or fire or bits of papers and scattered it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's symbolic. I mean, when people say, so I think what's interesting is over time, what I have learned when people say it doesn't work, what they're looking for is the action to be what causes the transformation. It's not the action, it's the symbolism, it's the energetic resonance with the permission slip of putting words on a piece of paper and then burning it. You have to give it up emotionally. It's not the paper
Right.
that's giving it up, it's
No.
you. So what also is interesting is I've come up against, I'm heavy on writing. Like there's a lot of writing in the work that I do with clients, and I totally love writing. So I resonate with what you're saying because words have power. They're a point of focus. I've trained myself into an ease of writing and having and understanding what that means. If somebody isn't, don't look at this example as the only thing possible. Find another permission slip, find another way. You can speak it into a recording device, your phone. You can record yourself and watch yourself speaking it, which is another point of view. It's really interesting when you record yourself and watch yourself speaking something. Oftentimes we can take a more compassionate perspective when we see ourselves on screen. Because when I was first making classes, I watched a lot of my own video and I had to look at myself and I felt my own reaction and constriction at first. I was like, oh my God, I didn't say the right thing. Look at me, I didn't look good. My background was like, there was all this criticism. And then over time, I learned to look at myself more compassionately. So all of these invitations are to look at yourself more compassionately, to understand more deeply who you really are.
Now, what you say is again very right. It's absolutely right. You see, and besides this thing, when we come to looking at who we are, we also got to look how do we behave?
Hmm.
How do we react?
Yes.
Right. And The challenge is that people want instant reaction. They
Mhm.
forget neither we coaches are hoodnies nor are they hoodney. That they walk on the stage, shake their hands, take a hand, and there's transformation. It doesn't happen that way.
No, it doesn't. And if somebody says it does, run fast and take your wallet with you.
You see, because what you have trained your mind for 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, 50 years, at least give it 50 days to 5 months to get it out of your system.
Mhm.
You have been training yourself to be distracted. You have been training yourself to be anxious. You have been training yourself to depreciate yourself, doubt yourself, which again causes anxiety and uncertainty. And you have not been doing it for the last 20 minutes. You have been doing it for the last 20, 30, 40 years. So
Yes,
all I say is
100%.
so all I say is at least give the same number of days for it to be shaken and it starts coming out. So
Yeah,
don't
I'm thinking about the numbers. I'm like, "Ooh, I did that for 45 years, which means I need to give myself another. I'm 51 now. It didn't start till I was 45." I'm like, "Ooh, oh, that's a long time."
yeah. So and what I say that this I have a formula, which lays the foundation to manage uncertainty and to manage a number of other things. That is, learn to manage your attention,
Mm,
because wherever your attention goes, energy goes,
yes.
and wherever energy goes, that magnifies. So if you're focusing all your energy on uncertainty, obviously uncertainty is going to magnify.
Mhm. I had
So
a dream about focus. I dream about this stuff in my sleep. I oftentimes that is my most relaxed state, obviously. And so my higher self and I are communing, and I get instructional information oftentimes right when I'm waking up. And I had these two incredible awarenesses. The first was how does a soul decide what its life themes are going to be? So I'm going to do a couple videos on that. And the other one was understanding your what we're talking about here, your emotional reactions in response to a situation, but also being able to correlate that same emotional sensation with other situations. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it will later when I explain it. But what I was doing is I was working on focusing on this one idea and I couldn't remember the other. And I was like, wait, where'd the other
Mhm.
idea go? So I'd relax back into it and be like, it's sort of like coming back out of the idea. The focus is expanding. And then I'd go back into the other idea and I'd be there sitting with it, playing with the idea. I'm like, wait, I can't remember the other one. So I'd go back to a neutral state and then go back. And what was happening was it was vibrational coherence, right? It was when
Mhm.
you're resonant with this idea, it's in your environment. When you're resonant with this other idea, it's in your environment. So when you're resonant with uncertainty, you don't have access to certainty. You sort of have to back away gently from the idea to a neutral state and then move gently into this other state, which takes this thing called time and space, right? We live in a time
Right.
space reality. So exactly what you're saying is you got to stop putting time markers on your personal growth because you're going to do this for eternity. So there is no time marker that you have to meet a certain, I have to be settled into certainty by Tuesday at 4, or I haven't done it. It's like, okay, that's one approach, but that's an uncertain approach because you're uncertain you're going to make that. So it's like, point of focus is consciousness. It is a point of focus. You and I both know this. We
Yes.
are focusing our consciousness in a particular time space reality, and we're either going to resonate with things that are um, uncertain or certain, and a combination of both. But the question always is, how do you? And what we're talking to people about is, how do you go from one to the other, right?
Yes.
Slowly.
Uh, having said they haven't given the first thing that okay, you've got to learn to manage your attention. coming to the second, coming to your question, how do you go forward?
Mhm.
It's very important you learn to observe. Observe
Yes.
what? Not only what, it's not only what's outside you, it's also what is happening inside you.
Mhm.
Because
Yes.
what happens inside you is a fraction of a second earlier or a few seconds earlier than you act or react.
Yes. That's
So
exciting.
having
People should get excited about that. That's like exciting information. There's a delay. You have time.
you have time, right? And now, how do you utilize the time? You utilize the time by taking a pause, taking a step back. Even when we breathe, there's a pause between the in breath and the out breath. You try breathing constantly, you will get tired.
It's called a
It is
workout.
that it is that pause, it is that pause where the freedom lies.
Mhm. Yeah.
So then you practice pause. And the last is obviously accept what it is.
Mhm.
Remove your specs, remove your lenses, remove your preconceived notions, remove your belief system, and accept reality as it is.
Mhm.
A number of cases, Alison, have come to me. They're saying, yes, we know this is this, but why did it not happen this way?
Mhm.
And
Heard
they're
that a
getting,
million times.
yeah, and they're getting anxious or uncertain because it did not happen their way.
Right.
Now, there's no remedy for that. No one can
No.
really help them.
Mhm. It's to give up the demand on it being a certain way, and but people have this they've misused the imagination to hold
Exactly.
captive certain ideas of what they think is supposed to happen, and then it doesn't show up the way they're like, "Ah, what?" It's like, well, you're actually misusing your imagination, using it to hurt yourself and harm yourself and keep yourself captive versus the imagination, as I know it to be, is a faculty to help you get into resonance with the idea, the general idea of what you want. It's supposed to make you, it's supposed to help you get happy, not hold you captive in a doubtful state, in an uncertain state. But most people set a goal or something out there and they go, okay, now I got to get there. Instead of going, oh, I'd really like these things to happen. It would be so cool. And just sort of playing with ideas like you did in kindergarten or age 5, just play. There was no demand that the sandcastle be a certain way. You just played in the sand, and you're like, "Oh, look at this! Look at this!"
You see, you said imagination, you're right. And if you really ask me, like even when we read something, it's our imagination which is helping us to comprehend. Because our brain doesn't understand words, it only understands pictures.
Mhm,
So it's our imagination. But when you carry your imagination too far, it becomes a problem.
mhm,
I, I read a very beautiful, say, it's not a quote, it's a small story. There's one chap in the Eastern world called Mullah Nasruddin. He's supposed to be a wise come foolish man. So
mhm,
this guy was dating some girl, and he goes to his mother and says that, look, I want to marry this girl, and but mom, she doesn't believe in God. So the mother says, well, I'm not too happy. I'll be very happy if you persuade her to believe in God. He says, okay. He goes to that girl and persuades her. Then, after a month, the mother says, what happened? I'm not seeing you with that girl. He says, I persuaded her so much, now she wants to become a nun.
okay. Nice. Dun, dun, tsh.
So,
Sandeep will be performing tonight at the local club.
so obviously, excess of anything is bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of uncertainty is created because of excessive imagination, taking imagination too far.
One of the things so if someone is uncertain, and they don't have to do it this way. This is the way I enjoyed using my intellect to try to see the ways in which, because I want to, when you talked about pause is so important, like to see the ways in which pause is accentuated in our world. And the one thing is the breath. Like if you just go, look, I have to pause here when I breathe in, when I breathe out. The other thing is sentences. No one ever gives credit to the space between the letters and the words in the paragraphs. They're a pause. Without
Yes.
them, you have no meaning, literally. And everyone can, relate to words, whether your language is more, alphabetic like ours is, or if it's more symbolic like some languages. There's still a pause. There's still the space between the formation of the letters. So, if we can persuade the listeners to celebrate the pause instead of have it be the boogeyman, in that pause, there's a space to adjust your vibration, which puts you in the frequency of the things that you want to be certain about, of the results that you want. So it's like it's a multi-step inner process of awareness, like you said, pause, and then adjust. It's just, it's so simple. So simple.
Yeah, that is true, because this has really helped me. There was a time when I was very uncertain, and uncertainty was creating a havoc, and it was making me all the more uncertain. So I was focusing on uncertainty, and it was growing and growing and growing, and it really, put me down everywhere. I was a financial broke, I was a spiritual broke, I was an emotional broke, and that were the consequences of untamed uncertainty. And then these four things: attention management, internal external observation, pause, and acceptance came to my life. I started practicing them, right? So the first thing which happened when I started practicing them, I started aligning my purpose, thoughts, and actions, because these things gave me space to think, to align. Like you said, match my frequencies. They gave me space to look at the larger picture than the immediate picture. So the consequences were very clear to me. If I act, this happens. If I don't act, this thing happens. And if I act in this way, this thing happens.
Yep.
And obviously, then the pause came in, like I said, and ultimately acceptance came in.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right. And I think people misunderstand acceptance. They think acceptance means laying down and playing dead. It's like, no, you recognize where you are and celebrate it, knowing you're always going to move forward. It isn't like, this is all I'll ever have or be, or, no. That's a misunderstanding of acceptance. Acceptance is just, I'm okay with where I am in this moment, knowing that every moment is different and is embodied with the ability to choose something else. That's all.
Listen, I would like to add one thing. You see, like we live in two worlds simultaneously,
Yes.
the internal world and the external world. So what you referred to was the internal world acceptance. This is where I am, and this is who I am, and this is what I am. And at the same time, you also accept the outer world as it is.
Yep.
He is this, she is this, this is black, this is white. Because once you start accepting, uncertainty takes a backseat, and you start finding solutions and move towards certainty.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think what we should do now is just sort of leave it. That is a fantastic point to leave it on, because what I would like to invite people to do is go back through this, because there is so much content that when you digest and assimilate for yourself in this one video alone, that you could not need any other videos that we ever do. And you could learn from just this one how to go from uncertainty to certainty. So let's just leave it there. Invite the viewers to go back. If you want to take notes, take notes. If you want to engage with some of those ideas, engage with some of those ideas. I mean, you've got two teachers here, Sandeep and I. We have been teaching collectively for a really long time. So, you've got two experienced teachers sharing ideas, but not just experienced teachers, people who understand the spiritual realm as well as the physical realm. So, we'll do more lives, but just, pause, come back to it. See if you hear things differently. See what resonates with you tomorrow or the next day, and just slow it down.
Yes, and one thing, boys, for the teachers, go to teachers who have gone through it. They have lived it. They have been there. They've seen it and come out of it. So what we are sharing with you is what has worked for us and worked for our clients.
Right. And seeing the multiplicity of ways that students have approached these topics. But it's so interesting how there's a commonality amongst questions, isn't there? There are certain questions that come up for every single person.
That is true, because at the end of the day, all of us, the internal dynamics of each and every human being is the same.
Yep.
All of us bleed red. It's only over here that we think we are different, but the fact is, at the core, all of us are alike.
Yeah, that's a perfect place to sort of let the resonance seep out into the ether and invite those who are ready for this information, because it's simple, but it's actually high level as well. So
well, you can connect with us on our LinkedIn page, Facebook page. My page goes by Sandeep Gupta, and you're already on Allison's page.
Exactly.
So yes, you could write to us, send us your suggestions, send us your queries, and we'll be happy to respond and engage with you.
Absolutely. We are dedicated to the craft 100%. So, all right, you guys, we will see you next time.
Yes, so that'll be 21st, right? Same time.
I think that's,
Next.
Is that what it is next week? I don't know.
Time.
21st, yes. Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Take care.